God never changes. His being is never changing. But watch this, God's methods are always changing.
Dr. Tony Evans says the breakthroughs you're waiting for depend on making sure your connection with Christ is current.
The reason why you must have a contemporary relationship with God is you need to find out what he's up to now.
This is The Alternative with Dr. Tony Evans, author, speaker, senior pastor of Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship in Dallas, Texas, and president of the Urban Alternative. Don't you wish God would just come down and walk you through what it takes to win the battles in your life? Well, today, Dr. Evans explains how we can get the kind of dependable direction we need as we launch into a series of messages called Strength for the Journey. Let's join him.
David longed to be in touch with God, to make sure that what he wanted was what God wanted. He wanted to make sure that what was in his heart was in God's heart. So he would pursue the heart of God, pursue what God wanted to help clarify what he should even want. And God paid a lot of attention to that. That caught God's ear, that David was a man who pursued, who ran after the heart of God. One indicator of him pursuing the heart of God, there are many, is 1 Chronicles 14. David's star has begun to rise in chapter 14, verse 2. And David realized that the Lord had established him as king over Israel and that his kingdom was highly exalted for the sake of his, God's people, Israel. We're told that David realized the only reason this shepherd boy became king was because God, he says, had established him. So he had a recognition, I only am where I am because of the goodness of God. So the starting place for your breakthrough is to understand that you are what you are by the grace of God. Now, you're not all you want to be, but whatever you are, David started with the understanding that God was his source. That he had the slingshot and he had the stone, but God directed it to the forehead in the slaying of Goliath, which began the process of establishing David. He recognized that while he did some things, God was overseeing this process and God was his source. And so God rose up. He had a view of God that didn't make God an extra when I need him, a spare tire when I go flat. He understood that God would be his source, because God had brought him to this place. When the Philistines, verse 8, heard that David had been anointed king over all of Israel, and remember, Goliath belonged to the Philistines, all the Philistines were up in search of David, and David heard of it and went out against them. He goes, watch this, to face his dilemma head on, and it was a big one. The Philistines come and they make a raid. And this is what I want you to see first of all. Verse 10. David inquired of God, saying, shall I go up against the Philistines, and will you give them into my hand? He inquired of the Lord. Now let me tell you why that's important. That is important because that means he did not depend on past victories for present success. He didn't look back and say, well, I beat Goliath, there ain't gonna be no trouble either, because that happened yesterday. You see, he needed something fresh. He needed a fresh word for a fresh situation. He needed a contemporary word for a contemporary problem. One of the reasons why we don't see more breakthroughs is we're living in the past. In other words, there is no fresh word from God. We live on stale words from God. No, he would not move without divine approval. Remember, he's a man after God's own heart. In other words, he was asking God, what are you going to do? So I know what I'm supposed to do. And the Lord said to him, go up, for I will give them into your hands. Now here is the confidence of David. The confidence of David is one, he would not move without divine approval, but once he got divine approval, he was able to move forward in faith. One of the reasons why many of us are unable to move forward in faith is we've not yet heard a clear word from God. So because we're not sure what God's going to do, we're not sure what we should do. Because heaven is silent, earth is in a predicament. It says that David inquired. To inquire is to ask of somebody of something. He asked God, should I go? Will you go? And if we go, will there be victory? God says, go, I'm going with you, and we will win. Now tell me something. If God came to you about the thing you are facing in this year, and you ask him about it, and he told you, yep, we're going to handle this together this year, even though it may not be handled yet, you'd move forward in this year with confidence. And the reason you'd move forward with confidence is because you heard a word from God. He inquired of God. He needed a breakthrough against the Philistines. We will be inquiring or asking God about whatever the issue is. Let me tell you why this is critical. You see, God set in motion natural laws. We call it nature or the law of this or the law of gravity. These are natural ways things work. The natural cause and effect relationships of life. God set them in motion. But even though God set them in motion, God has the right to intervene in them, to correct them, adjust them, or even overrule them. But what God has said is, he won't necessarily automatically intervene. He will do it upon request. He set in motion natural laws. He told man to rule over the earth. You get to make the decisions. If you need me, call me. You'll find many scriptures in the Bible that says, if you call, I will answer. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and why is God telling us to do all that? Why doesn't he just overrule? Because God will only intervene if he is wanted. It is earthly permission for heavenly interference. It is saying, I've got issues on earth I want heaven to interfere with. I don't want the natural course of events to continue as they are continuing. I want heaven to interfere with earth's events. The reason why you've got to go to God on the breakthrough issues of life is he has information. God has created a limitation here, and that is nobody has all the information except him. That's why David inquires of the Lord. Now, if I go, are you going with me? Because I don't want to go out here and look like a fool. So he inquires. He wants to know what God is up to. So he comes up and he defeats them, verse 11, and he says, God has broken through. That's a breakthrough. If you've never had a breakthrough, because you inquired of God, you sought what God wanted done in a particular situation, then maybe for you, God is still conceptual. He's still a great idea, nice in the vicinity, but you can't tell it for yourself. But please notice verse 13. The Philistines made yet another raid in the valley. Now, wait a minute now. I thought we just beat them boys. I thought we just defeated them. Here we go. They're coming back again. David inquired again of the Lord. David didn't say, I done already prayed about this last time. I dealt with that last week in church. So let me go up there and fight them this time because I dealt with it last time. God never changes. He's the same yesterday, today, and ever. But watch this, God's methods are always changing. His being is never changing. But his methods, strategies are always in motion. God is always in motion. He's always moving. And so the reason why you must have a contemporary relationship with God is you need to find out what he's up to now. He inquired of the Lord again. The Lord said to him, you shall not go up. But notice this. Circle around behind them. Come up at them in front of the balsam trees. This time God gives details. He said, no, don't go. But what I want you to do is I want you to implement another kind of strategy. I want you to circle around behind them, come up in front of them, but do it in the vicinity of the balsam trees. So he not only tells them the strategy, he tells them specific location where to do it. Do it in front of the balsam trees. It shall be when you hear the sound of the marching in the tops of the balsam trees, then you shall go out to battle, for God will have gone out before you to strike the army of the Philistines. He says, now, listen, pay attention to me, David. You go out, circle around the back, then come to the front, but do it in the balsam trees, because I'm going to whip through there with a wind that's going to create a marching sound in the trees. And when it creates this marching sound in the trees, it's going to so confuse them because it's going to sound like an army. They're going to think that they're under attack. And when they get all confused, then you will attack them. Why? Because I will have already gone in front of you. If David didn't inquire of the Lord again, he would have been operating by yesterday's plans in a today's situation. He wouldn't have known the heart of God, so he wouldn't have had the plan of God. That's why your relationship must be contemporary, not historical.
When we come back, we'll have more on how God can speak to us and how we can be sure it's really him that we're hearing. First, though, if you'd like to feel better equipped to meet the challenges in your life, we have a great resource that'll help you and everyone in your family. It's called the Kingdom Family Devotional, new from Dr. Evans and his son Jonathan. The book is packed with 5 devotional messages for each week of the year, covering topics from salvation to sanctification. Simple enough to keep the kids involved, but with enough substance to help you build a well-rounded Christian life. This is the perfect resource for families who want to grow closer to God and each other, and we want you to have it with our thanks for your gift of any amount toward Tony's ministry. And if you contact us right away, we'll also include full-length CDs of Tony's current 8-part teaching series, Strength for the Journey, as a special bonus. We can only make this offer available for a short time, so be sure to contact us today at tonyevans.org to make your contribution and your request. Or give us a phone call at 1-800-800-3222, where staff members are standing by around the clock to help you. Again, that's 1-800-800-3222. Now let's get back to our message. Here's Dr. Evans.
When I get up and I'm getting dressed in the morning to come to work, I start off listening to national news. So I get this broad panoramic view of what's happening in the world. I also can get national weather. They'll show a picture of the United States of America, and they'll have different temperatures located in different spots. And they will talk in terms of general sections of the country, and they'll show general trends on the national news. Now, if I want to know what's happening in Dallas and the specific weather in Dallas, I turn to Channel 4. Because Channel 4 is not giving national. Channel 4 is giving you specific local application in detail. When you come to church on Sunday morning, you get national news. This national news. In other words, I got one sermon for everybody, okay? So don't get mad talking about why were you preaching at me. It was national news. It was global news. It was for the group. But for your breakthrough, you need local news. For your breakthrough, you need local temperature. You need the application where you are. Because my global thing may give you some general concepts. It may give you a guide. It may give you a direction, but it won't give you specific temperature readings. When you come and you hear the word preached, that's national news. It is your inquiring of God directly that will give you local news. That will talk about its specific application to your life, to your situation. David did just as God commanded, verse 16, and they struck down the army of the Philistines from Gideon, even as far as Gezer. Then the fame of David went out into all the lands, and the Lord brought the fear of him on all the nations. No Super Bowl team can depend on last year's victory for this year's victory. It's a whole new game. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're saying. I'm reading your mind. You're saying, but David heard directly from God. You know, David heard directly from God, so he could get specifics like that. I don't get those details. You don't get them either because you're not inquiring or you're not listening. The same God who spoke in the Old Testament speaks in the New to New Testament people. We're New Testament people. He speaks by his Spirit in unspoken words. The way God gives details, the Bible, you get that which is available to everybody. But what you don't get is that which is unique to you. You literally have the opportunity to hear the voice of God for yourself, which means it applies specifically to you. Another Christian asking about the same breakthrough could get a whole different message. And that's the problem with folk who want to tell everybody else what to do. God doesn't work the same with everybody else. He works nationally the same because we're under the same constitution of the Bible, but not applicationally the same. Quarterbacks now have in their helmets gear there that allows them to hear the play that's being called or that they want him to call because the crowd's noise is deafening. So they got a headset where they just hear a little whisper in a big crowd. There's noise all around you. But the Bible says there's the still small voice of God. Calls it the still small voice. You can barely hear it. If I were to come up to you and whisper in your ear and say, you know the only person who would hear that? It's the person I'm talking to. Because that's the only person I want to hear. Because it's only for them. That's how God talks. When he's talking to you. And it's not for everybody else. When we're preaching the Bible, that's for everybody. When he's telling you how it works in your situation, still small voice. But if you don't inquire of the Lord and you don't drown out the sound of the crowd, what's being said to you? The solution to your problem you never even heard. The solution to your breakthrough. He says he called the place of breakthrough. Do you know God not only wants to tell you what your answer is, he wants to tell you the strategy you should use to get it. That's what's frustrating people. They say, I know God talking through the Bible, but how does he talk to me? You'll be reading the Bible, and all of a sudden while you're reading the Bible, an idea germinates in your head while you're reading the Bible. So your thoughts are now applied from God's word. And all of a sudden, God is now real for you because you're hearing his voice for yourself. You're not dependent on somebody else because somebody else can't give you the application specifically. They can give you the principles, but not the application. That's the key to your breakthrough. We want you to get quiet before God and listen. And let him talk unspoken words based on the word to your mind.
Dr. Tony Evans, talking today about how we can stay directly and personally linked to the Lord when we're facing challenges in our lives. And he'll come back in a few moments to wrap up today's program with a special story, so be sure to stay with us. First, though, today's lesson was called Connecting with God for a Breakthrough. That's the title to ask about if you're interested in getting a full-length copy on CD or DVD. Or receive it as a part of Dr. Evans' current teaching series, Strength for the Journey. Remember, all 8 full-length CDs in this collection are yours with our thanks when you make any contribution to help us keep Tony's teaching on this station. You'll also receive the Kingdom Family Devotional book I told you about earlier. Again, this special double offer is only available for a limited time, so be sure to contact us today to make the arrangements. The quickest way to do that is to visit us online at tonyevans.org. But we also have staff members standing by in our resource center to help you. Just call 1-800-800-3222 day or night. That's 1-800-800-3222. Lowering your expectations in life may keep you from being disappointed, but tomorrow Dr. Evans explains that it may keep you from being delivered too. Right now, though, he's back with a story about snatching deliverance from the jaws of defeat.
Dallas Cowboys were the enemy in Seattle. Seattle was the home team. There was an invasion from Dallas into their house. It looked to me and to everybody else like the enemy was going to win. When I saw them on that last drive going down the field, I know you felt it like I felt it. We got it. We got it. We in your house. But we got it. It may be your house, but we're going to treat it like our house today because the enemy from Dallas had invaded Seattle. There was a pass thrown down the field to tight end Whitten. He caught the ball, and the ref said, first down. It was over. They could have run out the clock. It was over. Now, not only that, but nobody on ground level had power to change anything. You see, because the coach can't throw a flag about the spotting of the ball in the 2-minute segment. He doesn't have power. The players didn't have power. Nobody could turn it around. Nobody could change it because it was declared on earth. Earth had declared first down. But way up there in the box, there was some folk looking down who said, we got to look at this thing another way. We got to check this thing out one more time. We're not convinced that what was called on earth is validated up in heaven. And so when they reviewed the play, up there overruled down here, so that down here had to reverse what they originally said to agree with up there, which means that Seattle had a breakthrough. They had a turn of a situation we never dreamt of, a situation we thought was impossible. How could they come home losers when they were so close to being winners? Because up there turned it around. I don't know what you need from God this year. I don't care what earth has said, because up there can turn it around. Up there can change it. I know the devil has come on your home territory and said, first down. But if you let up there review it, if you inquire of the Lord, he can turn it around, make it brand new, and bring glory to his name.
The Alternative with Dr. Tony Evans is brought to you by the Urban Alternative and is made possible by the generous contributions of listeners like you.